guys, Akwaba, welcome to my channel. My name is Nana. If this is your first time coming here to this channel, I welcome you here. I hope you love it here. Akwaba, I hope you stay. I will be talking today about something that I have been holding up for a little while. Because this week I actually had someone else trigger that conversation. When I started my YouTube channel, I wanted to talk about Africa's stories. I wanted to bring the food recipes that I had, the ones that I keep getting from my mother, and I wanted to talk about our beauty and our issues, and I wanted to talk about travel and go to places and make sure that I bring all of those experiences to people so we could demystify this continent that has been bastardized by the media and by books for so many years. But as my channel progressed, what I have realized is that I was getting all these nasty comments on my YouTube. At a point I even had to turn off my comments, and that's not engaging, but I stopped. And if you're here long enough, you would notice that I took down some of my videos that were like the chatting videos and the discussion videos, because I was not about to stress myself, and I wondered why I was taking all this, but I realized that's the politics of YouTube. That's how YouTube and social media works. People can say whatever it is, and YouTube is nothing but social media. So people can say whatever they want. My thing is to make sure I protect my space so people can have the discussion. So yes, I'm going to be bringing back the African videos, the chatting videos, the videos that will let us have the conversation. And I hope you love it here. I hope you subscribe so that you be keeping abreast with what you have to say. But today what we're going to talk about is, why is Africa as a continent so behind? If you want to watch, keep watching. So this week, as I was saying, and someone had to trigger a conversation, because what people do is that for some reason people don't know that I'm African. So whenever I say that I'm from Ghana, people are like, oh, Guyana or something, and I have to explain no, because a lot of people do not know, and that's the thing that I'm realizing. It's still like a cultural shock for me, because I'm thinking everybody knows where Ghana is, but a lot of people do not know where it is in the United States. So now I've become like an envoy, for Africa, always discussing these issues. And someone asked me that why is it that whenever Africa comes up, people have such a bad perception about it? And I'm like, it's because of like the images that you've been shown. The give 50 cents a day, and this child that is, being plagued by poverty and being plagued by hunger and being plagued by disease is going to have a chance in life. That child is always a Black African child. I don't know where they pick them from, but I'm not going to be a liar and say that we don't have issues in Africa. So what I'm going to talk about is, why is Africa as a continent so behind? Now, when you put a fifth grader who is maybe, I don't know, 6-7 years old, and you put a high schooler and you ask both of them to take a standardized test with the same test limits, with the same time, with the same material, you're gonna have, in very normal cases, unless you have a child genius in your hands, it's gonna happen is that the high schooler who has gone through it, who has like come out of it, who knows how school works, who studied all that material, is gonna pass the exam most of times than the child who you want to take that test. So pitting Africa against continents like North America, you are doing Africa such a disservice, because Africa is a young continent. Now, do not get up in arms. The landmass that Africa sits on right now has been there for millions of years, and whether you believe in creationism or evolution, you're gonna believe that Africa was the original continent, or it had the original people. Everybody came from Africa, as some people love to say. But the title, the name Africa, the boundaries, the borders, the countries, it's new, right? It's so new that if we're gonna get into it right now, but it's so new that there's some people's who grandmothers here are older, they're older than some of African countries. And when you compare the ability of a fish and a bird to fly, obviously the fish is gonna fail. And that's the situation that we're having now. I feel like people need to give Africa a break. People need to like understand the history, understand why we're where we are right now, and think about the way we have to move forward. To know is that people think that Europeans came to Africa, traded, it later on got into the slave trade, and people were sold, people were kidnapped, people, there were wars, there was genocide, and then when the slave trade ended in the early 1800s, what did people think? That Europeans just left, the European powers just left, and then Africa just resumed. And for some reason, Africa has been stuck in its ways for all these hundreds of years, or these thousands of years. That's not what happened. Okay? When they left and the slave trade was abolished, there was a lot going on in Europe at that time. And because they already had a footing, they had grounding, they had built economies, and they had like built forts and castles, and some of them had married, and they had children, and it was a whole thing, right? And what happened is there was a conference, right, where European powers went, and they essentially shared Africa among themselves like meat. I'm talking countries like the UK. Well, it was just Britain then. So it was Britain, it was France, it was Italy, it was Portugal, it was America. It was all these powers that you think about. These countries shared Africa amongst themselves. So when you look at some of the old names of countries in Africa, you will see things like Anglo or Franco or things like that to indicate that these were the powers in place. You look like a country like Senegal and Gambia, and you look at how it was so abysmally like bordered and shaped, and you look at a country like Ghana and Togo, and how Ghana has to like effectively cut a part of Togo to its map. That it wasn't a very well thought through thing that happened. All they wanted were the money they could get from it, the minerals they could get from it, the power they could get from it. And what happened at that time was that's how things started. That's how colonization started. That's how people are the way we are right now. That's how westernized Africa. That's how come I'm speaking English right now and I'm not speaking Sishri to you right now. This is what happens when someone colonizes you. They try to make you into them. They try to make you into them, and it never will work, because we're different people. So when people always say that, oh, why is the Africa like got stuck after the slave trade, and why didn't they move on? That's not what happened. When the civil rights movement was going on in the United States here, some African countries were still being colonized. I mean, Ethiopia prides itself as the oldest country in Africa, but they were colonized for a few years. They don't like to say that. They will argue me out of this room if I say that they were colonized, but they were colonized for a few years, and that was they got out of it, I think, in the 40s. Now, the 40s were not a long time ago. People think these things happened a long it didn't happen a long time ago. So compare Ethiopia, compare Libya. Ghana got independence in the 50s. If you're comparing, America got its independence in 1776. You're comparing a country like America, having gone through all they've gone through, a civil war, democracy. They've gone through all the things they've gone through, and they are literally centuries ahead of us. You're centuries ahead of us. So when you say, why is the Africa in infrastructure, we're not moving forward, and we have problems with electricity, we have problems with water, and we have problems with our economy and our GDP. What you're doing is you're comparing apples and onions. It's not the same thing. They're not even in the same family. It's going to take a long time for us to catch up, because people are light years ahead of us. It's like I'm living in the future and in the past or the present. Like, you know how it is? It's like I'm living in the future and I'm living in the past and I'm living in the present. That's what it is. But I am so proud of us. I'm not even going to, because as difficult as it is for a lot of African countries right now to rise up from that state of being colonized, onto a state where you're managing your own affairs, you're naming your own countries, you're making your own anthem, you're having a sense of nationalism and stuff. It is very difficult, you know. So we're going to be the generation of Africans that are going to have to bring back the manufacturing sector. We're going to be the ones that have to rewrite the curriculum because we're using outdated, archaic curriculums. We're the ones that are going to have to change things. Another thing that I feel like Africans, we do that we also don't, you know, take credit for is the way we trash our own and trash our own countries and talk about, oh, it's such a dump in Nigeria and it's such a dump in Ghana, it's such a dump everywhere else. Well, what are you doing about it? What are you doing? The fact that you're out of the country, like me, it doesn't make you out of it. You know, it doesn't make you any less African. It doesn't make you any, you know, at the end of the day, you're African. You know, so what are you doing? What are you doing to make sure that Africa is not behind, like we're catching up and we're catching up fast? What are you doing? Also going to be the generation that develops like black like livers and black kidneys, as people during that very industrial time of America, they were working the coal mines and they were doing all of that, building railways and making sure that, you know, there was some sort of generational wealth, and America is the way it is. We love living in this country, but then we also need to understand how it came by. So if we're gonna be here and you're gonna go back or you're gonna do something, you need to make sure what you're doing is not advancing just you, but it's actually advancing the continent. It's gonna take a long time for Africa to catch up, but I have a lot of hope that the continent will catch up. I feel like the mindset needs to change. People need to want to be educated. We need to make the path easier for those of the generation that's gonna come. I don't think I'm gonna see it in my lifetime. I could live 100 years, and I don't think Africa is going to completely catch up. You know, but it's gonna take a while. You know, it's gonna take a while, and I'm up for it. And I hope like you guys know what is going on and see what's going on and add your thoughts to it. Whatever it is that you want to say to me, I'm going to tell you to keep it clean. Do not resort to insults or like all that kind of like language. I'm just like, I'm not up for it. And that was the reason why I took this part of my channel away, but I'm bringing it back. So say what you have to say, contribute. I'm all ears. I want us to have conversations. You don't have to be African to even like indulge in the conversation. You can just like say something that's constructive that will move this conversation forward. And I believe that I could create a platform that we could have these conversations often, and we'll think about the best way to move forward, because as it is now, we're not really doing much. I'm just gonna be honest, but I believe it can change, and I believe that we can play catch up. So we may be slightly behind a few thousand years right now, but we're gonna catch up, and I think it's gonna be a great thing. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you loved the conversation, and I hope you subscribe, you thumbs this video up, you can share on your social media platforms, and I will be back here every week. Yes, I'm gonna be bringing the recipes again. I do it all the time on my channel. I have whole playlists for that. I have travel playlists. I have all of that, so make sure you watch that, and I will be here. Make sure you comment. Take care. I'll see you later.